The story begins the main character and school student and fight is taking place in a playground between a few students. The Hindi Special Training High School is a place where students train their Ania to become soldiers useful to their country. A bunch of students are surrounding just one boy. They plan to beat him with their numbers because his strength is greater than theirs in the fight that breaks out. The boy manifests his idea as a large iron axe. The people surrounding him are no match for him even in superior numbers. He takes them all out in a battle against different classes at the same standard. Park Jin-sung, a lean boy, wearing spectacles and with a shabby hairdo, is standing in the corner, watching the battle. He was with the group where he was supposed to be, but he has no intention of fighting in the battle as he knows it will make no difference. He is the lowest of the low, the only F-ranked student in the entire school. His classmates call him to join the fight, but he politely refuses. They are not going to be polite to him later as they tell him to wait for the payback. They blame their loss on his non-participation even though they realize that he would not make any difference in the result. They probably just like to bully him because he can't fight back. They beat him up and call him a worthless piece of trash, but Park Jin-sung doesn't retaliate. He takes the hits and only dodges the one which could do serious damage. He's at air probably grants him the ability to dodge any attack. His bullies get even angrier at this, but Park Jin-sung acts like a fool and still talks to them politely. They decide to beat their frustration into him, but he runs away. His physical abilities are also quite low and he is caught quickly as he is getting pummeled by his classmates. Everyone makes fun of him. No one likes to be in the same class as him and they think that he should just quit the school for everyone's sake. The bullies tell him that he doesn't need to tell anything to the teacher as it was his fault that he was weak, but the teacher comes in interrupting the commotion. His name is Young-ho and he is quite familiar and friendly with his students, but right now he is really excited about some good news he wants to share with the class. The government has realized the potential of the students in their school. The school is going to become the test site for a military program and the students will be trained to be directly drafted into the army once they graduate from school. One student, Baeun Jong, does not like the idea. He knows his teacher well enough to guess that the plan and the program were going to be a bit weird. He is one of the top students in the class when it comes to combat abilities, but average otherwise. He quarrels with the teacher about the changes going to be made, but there is nothing either of them can do. The interest of the military was due to the splendid performance of the third-year students. They were going to be graduated as ranked officers in the army, but in each class the students would be graded according to the new system and would be issued military ranks as well. The teachers would be given the rank of platoon commander and the class would be a platoon. The whole standard would be a squadron. Park Jin-sung is not impressed with the changes that are going to be implemented soon. He knows that he will be the one who will face the most problems. He asks the teacher about the students who don't want to take part in the training system. The teacher becomes serious and tells him that the regimen was compulsory for all the students and those who did not want to take part could try to transfer to another school. Young-ho does not try to hide the fact from him that he wants Jin-sung to transfer schools, but before he can reply, other students start bombarding the teacher with questions. They demand to know more about the reasons and the impacts of the change. Young-ho starts telling them as he distributes their rank badges to them. He explains how the third years were already given the rank of sergeant, but the second years would get a chance to rise even higher by the time they reach graduation, and it was an opportunity for him as well as the performance of his class would benefit him the most. He keeps on talking and distributing the badges, but Jin-sung feels like the school teacher has forgotten about him. He has not entered his emblem yet. Forget that school teacher. Young-ho had not indeed looked at him. Also, the school teacher explains in a stern tone that only one student had failed to attain the smallest rank of a private in the entire academy. That was none other than Park Jin-sung. He would have to start as a trainee novitiate. Those words are a shock to Jin-sung. Not that he thinks that he was better than that, but it was because he allowed that the starting rank would have lenient norms, but he cannot say anything that would make effects better for him, so he stays quiet. After Jungle calls him into the office to talk, he doesn't beat around the backcountry and asks Jin-sung to consider changing seminaries. He knew he couldn't achieve anything. Then Jin-sung tries to move him and asks that he might suddenly unleash his eventuality and could ameliorate a lot. The school teacher bursts out laughing. He thinks that Jin-sung was joking when he was actually being earnest. Jin-sung is shocked that the school teacher thinks so lower of him, while the school teacher acts like he's considerate of his scholars since he just wants to get relief of him. An F-rank student would be a spot on his track record. Jin-sung realizes it and asks him if he really allowed that souls had species to them too. Young-ho laughs at it, allowing that it was just another joke. He tells Jin-sung that there are species in the souls, and that was why Adias had species too, but Jin-sung doesn't agree with his opinion. He seems to know a dark secret that could change the understanding of Adaya and souls ever. The military system is enforced and the team or class is divided into syllables, outfits 1, 2, and 3 of Class F and members independently. Each team has a sergeant who is responsible for the rest. The attendance is also in military style, and the sergeant tells how numerous people are present out of the full strength. Baeun Giant is the sergeant for squad, which also includes Park Jin-sung. He refuses to count him as a team member while giving the attendance report and openly calls him a piece of. During the report, everyone laughs at Jinsung and indeed the school teacher does not say anything to them. The class moment is going to be a field exertion. There will be squad battles and people from the service would be watching. These scouts had decided on the competitions and would be watching from a secret place to assess the performance and eventuality of the scholars. All the scholars from the first alternate and third times would share, while the scholars suppose that the battles would be between outfits at the same standard. They're proven wrong. Snappily, Jong and his squad are going to fight with squad of team of the third time. The news strikes Jongle like a thunderbolt. He was confident in his C rank at Aya and combat capability, but that would not give any advantage against the third times, and class was supposed to be the stylish indeed. Among them he loses heart as the school teacher and the rest of the scholars leave them to prepare for the battle. He's formerly frustrated, traded, but also he reflections it out, saying that their chances would be indeed lower considering that they had the worst student in the entire academy in their team. But Jinseng does not bother about what he says. He was planning to watch from the sidelines the whole time. After all, his platoon was strong enough, but if they were going against third times it would be different. He's dejected just from hearing this. Giant confronts him and starts beating him. He knows that Jinsung is not going to be useful for anything. He just took a spot and filled it without giving anything in return. There is a monster in the team. They're going to fight on Sunho. A third-time student is famed for his power. How could they fight him and the others if Jinsung was with them? Jong shouts at Jinsung that he would be the reason if anyone's record got a negative in this battle. He is fed up with the polite and amenable way he always uses, and that he dares to crack jokes indeed when effects were so serious and tense. But it was no use taking his frustration out on him. He has a brilliant and evil idea. He's going to use the useless dogface as his line of defense. Jinseng will be a meat guard for the sergeant of the team. Jinseng had formerly said that he'd take any part the sergeant would offer, but he regrets his words. He doesn't have the strength to free himself from Jong's grip as the ultimate carries him to the battleground. As anticipated by everyone on Sungho is the sergeant of Team 1 of the first team, first squadron. The two outfits are standing side by side and the school teacher calls both of the sergeants ahead. They're both ready to fight and impress the scouts with their capacities. All the scholars of the academy are also ready to see the showdown. The rules are simple. The scholars have been given irons that would break. Formerly they have entered significant damage if the cuff breaks. The person is out, and when everyone is out the team loses. But since it was the alternate time versus the third time, effects were made a little easy for them. They had to hold their ground for 5 twinkles and it would be their palm, but it didn't feel like indeed that would be possible. The team of the third time was full of important people. For the alternate time scholars it would not be possible to defend their home and leader for 5 twinkles. As the alternate times prepare for the battle, Jinsung is being manhandled and handled like a guard, but indeed also he hopes that if his squad wins, the school teacher would consider that he actually has commodity to contribute to the platoon. Just as the match starts, Jong displays his strategy. It's as simple as it is selfish. He runs down carrying Jinsung and leaves his squad members stranded. They ask him for instructions and he yells at them to cover him. That was all they demanded to do for the coming 5 twinkles, but that's easier said than done. It takes only 2 third times, Sungho and a girl named Julie, to take out much of the alternate times. They collect the irons painlessly as the girl heads towards Jong, and Jinseng Giant yells at him to block her attack in any way he could, but Jinseng acts like he has no idea. He tells his team leader that they should run down in contrary directions to confuse the adversary, but also he sees school teacher Young Ho looking at him with a smile. That smile tells Jensen only one thing: he wants him to lose and transfer him away. This irritates him and he does the unanticipated. He shoves his sergeant to one side, but that was wonderfully timed. As Jimmy misses hitting either one of them, she thinks that it must be in fighting within the group and aims at Jinseng, who's near to her, but he ever dodges her original attack and she realizes that it was neither in fighting nor a strike that he managed to dodge her earlier. She unleashes her Eddie on an elegant armor covers her body. Jinseng acts like an addict when he sees her Eddie and respects her that it looks stunning and important. She tells him not to play a sharp butai. Jinsung has plans to distract her. He diverts her attention to their team leader, who's running down at full speed, but there are still 3 twinkles left for the match to turn in their favor. He cannot let himself or his sergeant be caught. If he wants to win, he decides to waste time. However, he can manage. He asks the girl if he could call her Nuno or just stick with Sunbai. He also shies down, saying that he wasn't trying to flirt or anything, but she isn't buying into his tricks. She tells him to display his supporter at formerly or she'd fight him in his weakened state. She suppositions that considering the way he could reply to her speed, he'd have a precious idea. He tries to act pathetic and talk about incoherent effects to decelerate her down, but when she takes a step towards him, he gives up and eventually reveals his idea. It is just a dagger that's no bigger than a kitchen cutter. It's F rank and has nothing remarkable. He can tell her. He shows her that it was fully ordinary and not indeed dangerous. That sight gives the girl a headache. She eventually realizes who was the man in front of her. She had been wasting her time with the brooded F rank failure. Her expedients of chancing a good opponent are fractured, and she leaves as Jinseng is reluctantly telling her how he cherishes his dagger. She walks down and Jinseng runs after her, saying that she was the one who wanted to see his supporter in the first place. She tells him to waste someone Differently's time it was just a strike after all that he could reply to her speed. She was disappointed, but that could be saved for latterly. He follows her indeed after Judy warns him she's being considerate, knowing the difference in their strengths and experience. She indeed gives him a final warning that she would attack him if he kept following her, but just as she turns to give him a scornful look, she finds that he's formally ready to attack. He'd really snuck up behind her and was going to deliver a blow, but she noticed he'd hoped that she would ignore him considering how ridiculous he was, but she weighs sincere towards her junior and turned to look at him. She sees the attack and realizes that she can slightly defend herself. It was a good thing that she had her armor on, else the dagger would be fatal and the F-ranked man was coming at her with good instigation. She sidestepped the attack with her arm and was surprised that it made no scrape where it hit. His disturbing verity was revealed to his elderly. He tries to laugh it off, but the bones who actually find it funny are his classmates. Indeed, the girl gets secondary embarrassment from this. She admits that he had good revulsions, but with this useless idea he could not do anything. It was better if he stopped trying. Ginseng checks his watch again and finds out that indeed, though he attracted attention and made a fool of himself, he could only stall her for 1 nanosecond. There were still 2 further twinkles, and not numerous of the team members were still active. The girl eventually reaches Bei and Zhang. He curses his teammates for being weaklings, but the girl tells him that at least they weren't recreants like him. He is face to face with a fearsome opponent, and he tries to bluff his way out of the situation. He tells her that she more stay down from him or she'd be lowered. She replies that it would be okay because that would prove his capacities to her. Zhang takes a step back and considers that it was just a stroke of terrible luck, but also commodity happens that makes him change his mind as Bottom touches a gravestone stuck in the ground, and he can tell using his vesture that it's massive. He feels like the tables have turned. Zhang's ideas excerpt and swing. He can use anything that was stuck nearly to attack his opponent. The mass of the wedged object that he can control depends on his training, and he felt that the gravestone beneath him was big enough to win. Against the third time, Ginseng has realized what was Zhang's real plan. He wanted to run and hide while chancing commodity suitable to use his ADA capacities on. They were C rank now, but had the eventuality to come B rank with some training. Ginseng shouts and tries to advise the unknowing Jew about the peril. Giant throws the gemstone with a lot of force. The girl isn't spooked of the giant gemstone coming at her with great speed. She's impressed that a alternate time could pull off a move like that, but just as Zhang is celebrating the impending success of his attack, he finds someone behind him. An Sung-ho sneaked up on him and projected him to the ground before he realized it. Zhang finds it illegal that a third time should use the way only weak were supposed to use. Meanwhile, Julie is having a hard time stopping the gemstone, but Sung-ho interferes and pushes the rock away fluently. She is really angry at his hindrance, but keeps her wrathfulness hidden. It seems that she had issues with Sung-ho trying to jump, and when she was trying to prove herself, she asks him if did he not believe she was able of handling this situation. Sung-ho replies that he trusted her, but it was his duty to take care that his squad members stay safe, and he was sure that Zhang had some further dirty tricks up his sleeve. He uses his "I'll surely catch you" to catch Jian, who was sneaking behind him with a club. Sonos that I was being rank, and it gave him the capability to catch everything he wanted within his range. He could just underpinning to the position incontinently and not waste a single moment in his conduct. His combat capability was a plus, which was as good as it got. Ginseng notices the power of the man considered to be a monster, and handovers just as he looks at him, but Sung-ho wants to know why he advised an adversary when his team leader was about to attack her. Ginseng tells him that he could not decide what to do and advised her in the heat of the moment, but the answer doesn't move Sung-ho, who uses his Adea to attack him. He's there without any time passing. He catches Jensen by his collar and his dagger gets tossed into the air. Ginseng tells him to let him explain, but his elderly does not feel to be in the mood for that. But Ginseng isn't what he appears to be. He catches the dagger from an awkward position while being caught by his important elderly and swings it at him. The attack could potentially be so dangerous that indeed the monster Sung-ho is forced to step back. He's indeed more interested in Ginseng now, but Ginseng is interested in installing him for the last nanosecond left. He checks his watch and wishes that time could flow briskly for a bit. If he could last for that long without showing his true strength, that would be ideal for him. But can he manage to defend himself from the strongest student in the academy? Does he really have a retired power beyond his F rank? Edea, what is that power, and will he show it to the entire academy now?